In today's episode, the NATO Secretary General came to Kyiv because Zelenskyy supposedly started blackmailing Western partners. The West appears to be militarizing Poland to start a war against Russia and Belarus. Propagandists are trying to intimidate women. Ukraine has supposedly begun intensified mobilization of women. Chemists and biologists are being actively recruited to the armed forces. Detector Media's analytical team closely monitors the spread of the most extreme fakes created by Kremlin propaganda. My name is Vadym Miskyi. In the next 10 minutes I will tell you the key points. Let's get started. NATO can make any statements it wants, but the Kremlin will continue to resist Ukraine's membership in the alliance. This narrative is actively promoted by Kremlin propagandists, particularly in connection with the NATO Secretary General's visit to Kyiv, the first since the beginning of the full-scale war. The unannounced visit took place as Ukraine insisted on providing clearer prospects for membership in the alliance.
Let me be clear. Ukraine's rightful place is in the Euro-Atlantic family. Ukraine's rightful place is in NATO. And over time, our support will help you make this possible. Today, the President and I discussed a multi-year support initiative. This will help you transition from Soviet-era equipment and doctrines to NATO standards and ensure full interoperability with the alliance.
The visit of the NATO Secretary General to Kyiv caused propagandists to take a great flight of fancy. Here is one example. Stoltenberg came to Kyiv because Zelenskyy supposedly began blackmailing Western partners. Reportedly, Ukraine will not launch a counteroffensive until it receives F-16 fighters and a large amount of ammunition. The propaganda is trying to demonstrate a fake divide in NATO-Ukraine relations.
And the occupants are bringing evil here because the Russian system, this is how the Russian system exists. They want to make humiliation of people, of human life, a normal life, and they try to expand it outside of their borders. And Russian missiles, Russian bombs, Russian artillery, their shameful terror against everything that is associated with normal life.
And this propaganda message is a masterpiece. Here's what was posted on Russian Telegram channels, and I'm not kidding. I quote, "According to Turkish sources, NATO is unhappy with the way Zelenskyy looked at the meeting with Stoltenberg. The supposedly haggard Zelenskyy, born in 1978, looked much worse than the NATO Secretary General, born in 1959. This is a communication disaster." End of quote. First of all, why are propagandists interested in Zelenskyy's appearance at all? This is not a beauty contest. Second, what should the president of a country at war look like? And yes, Zelenskyy is no match for a handsome man like Putin. Last year, Ukraine officially applied for accelerated accession to NATO. The debate over Ukraine's membership in the alliance is getting more intense ahead of the Vilnius summit scheduled for July 2023. The president of Ukraine has already received the invitation. The West is militarizing Poland to start a war against Russia and Belarus. Kremlin propagandists are promoting this message. Supposedly, in a few years, Poland will receive American tactical nuclear weapons, and there are already plans to enlarge the Polish army. Meanwhile, Poland cares not only about its own security, but also about protecting Ukraine from the invaders.
Kwestie związane z tym, aby mogły wykonywać na przykład misję air policing w ramach Sojuszu Północnoatlantyckiego. Te migi będą nam jeszcze na razie potrzebne, natomiast w momencie, w którym będą one stopniowo luzowane poprzez nowe samoloty przychodzące do naszej dyspozycji, zarówno spośród tych FA-50, które zostały zamówione w Korei Południowej, których dostawy do Polski rozpoczną się w tym roku, jak i w niedługim czasie, mamy nadzieję, samoloty F-35. Sądzę, że w przyszłości będziemy w stanie przekazać całą naszą pozostałą jeszcze flotę MiG-29 w Ukrainie, jeżeli będzie jeszcze taka potrzeba.
Analysts of the EU vs. Disinfo project pointed out the message about the so-called militarization of Poland. They reported that according to the national security strategy of Poland, the biggest threat to Warsaw is the neo-imperialist policy of the ruling elites of the Russian Federation.
Можно что угодно писать в доктрине, но размещение тактического ядерного оружия в Беларуси все говорит само за себя. Ребята, плохо будете понимать, получите покупку ядерной дубины. И бояться этого не надо. Когда мы, говорят, в Беларуси разместили против Украины, не, пацаны, это разместили против Польши, против Германии.
Propagandists deliberately mistake cause for effect. The current modernization of the Polish army is Poland's response to Russian aggression against Ukraine. Joe Biden would rather meet with Yeltsin than Putin. This was supposedly said by the former press secretary of the American president. This fake is being spread by Kremlin propagandists. Yeltsin, let me remind you, has been dead for a long time. The reports claim that Jen Psaki said this nonsense at a press conference, and this is a lie. VoxCheck project experts work on the case. They noted that Jen Psaki worked as a press secretary until May 13 last year, and now she is a TV presenter. The fact-checkers look through the former official's Twitter account, and there is no such statements there either. Meanwhile, Biden is going to run for a second term.
So if you're with me, go to joebiden.com and sign up. Let's finish this job. I know we can, because this is the United States of America. There's nothing, simply nothing we cannot do if we do it together.
This irritates the Kremlin propaganda quite a bit, and they are actively promoting the words of the former US president that sued Moscow.
Russia is teaming up with China. Iran is days away from a nuclear bomb, not even thinkable. Ukraine has been devastated by an invasion that would never, ever have happened if I was president.
Earlier, Kremlin propagandists spread a fake that Joe Biden was ready to hold talks with the late Soviet President Gorbachev. Kremlin propagandists are actively manipulating information about various vulnerable groups looking for more and more new victims. Here is an example of a media fake. The mobilization of women has supposedly begun in Ukraine. Female chemists and biologists are being actively recruited into the armed forces. The authors of the messages refer to the findings of Russian intelligence. The goal is to promote the narrative that Ukraine is supposedly preparing to use chemical and biological weapons. This is a lie. The Stop Fake project experts have found that there is no mandatory mobilization of women in Ukraine, let alone mobilization of women in specific professions. The narrative about Ukraine's use of biological weapons on the battlefield has been repeatedly spread by Kremlin, but such fakes have never been confirmed. Statements about combat insects have only irritated the international community. This narrative was spread by only one TV channel loyal to Trump and Russia.
It was a year ago that every media outlet in the United States, from USA Today to the New York Times, told you it was a dangerous conspiracy theory to believe the U.S. government had ever funded secret biolabs in Ukraine. The idea was ridiculous. In fact, it was Russian disinformation. And then one day, in sworn testimony, Toria Nuland of the State Department accidentally admitted that it was true.
Now the management of Fox News has already fired the host Tucker Carlson, who used to call Zelenskyy a dark force. After the news about Tucker getting fired, he was offered to work for a channel belonging to Russian propagandist Vladimir Solovyov. It would make for an interesting propaganda collaboration, wouldn't it? As for me, I wish you to only use information that has passed excellent fact-checking. Stay tuned.